Hey everyone, it's Editing Ivy here. I don't know what's going on with this Q&A. I think it's cursed. I think this Q&A is insanely cursed. Okay, I'm coming on here after watching the footage. For some reason, my microphone, my good microphone wasn't working, so like the sound quality is really bad. Also, it's shot in like cinema landscape view, so there's black borders on the top and bottom. This whole this whole video has been my nightmare. It has been my nightmare. So you know what? The footage is what it is. I am not redoing it at this point. I can't do it. It's already taken 2 months to get this video out. So it is what it is. This is going to be a very low quality video and I'm so sorry for that. But if I don't get this video uploaded, I'm going to throw my camera out the window is what's going to happen. I'm going to throw it out the window and then I'm never posting a video on YouTube ever again. So Mercury is not even in retrograde right now. Like, I don't know what's going on, but anyways, let's commence this Q&A or whatever. Hello. Okay, welcome back. It's part 2. It's part 2 of this Q&A that nobody asked for, that I just took 2 months to put together and put out. And I'm so sorry that it has taken me so long to answer these questions. Everything that I said in part 1 applies. I will link it in the description box if you haven't seen part 1, but we're just gonna go straight into all the other questions that I have not addressed yet. I'm gonna show you some footage in a second of answers to questions that I filmed weeks ago. I just never edited it and I didn't put it in part 1. Anyways, so I'm going to show you that footage first, answering some questions, and then I will continue answering the rest of the questions after you see that footage. So let's roll back a couple weeks. I will have timestamps on this video and we will finish this Q&A. I'm starting to garden as I want to be self-sufficient, especially in this day and age. I know you have a garden of your own, and my question would be, what advice do you have to give to someone who's new to gardening? I have so much advice that I wrote it down, and I'm just gonna run through the bullet points really quick because honestly, this could be like a whole separate video, but let me get the bullet points up and I'll share it with you really fast. I would do a simple sketch or a layout to organize what goes where. So in your garden space, how many garden beds do you have? Are you only doing pots? Maybe you live in an apartment and you do pots, which by the way is totally doable. I used to do that when I lived in an apartment. I have exclusively grown tomatoes in pots because I find that they produce so much better when they're in a pot, because when you restrict the root ball, it actually forces the tomatoes to grow larger and more tomatoes are produced overall. So I actually only grow my tomatoes in pots. I don't ever even put them in the ground, even though I have space to do so now. So if you're in an apartment, you can still garden. I've even grown lettuce and radishes in pots, which you wouldn't think that that's possible, but it totally is. So sketch out your garden space and kind of write down what goes where, and also write down, it's helpful to write down the planting dates just so you can keep track of that, when to harvest them, and so on and so forth. If you have a smaller space, you might want to opt for high yield compact crops. So think like greens, radishes, carrots, tomatoes. You might want things that grow up vertically as well. So peas, for example, if you have space to do a trellis, maybe you have a really small garden bed, but you can grow vertically, right? So grow some peas. They go up a trellis and then that only takes up a little row. I would also recommend looking up succession planting. So this is essentially where you sow little and often. So you plant a little bit right now, you harvest it and then plant a little bit more, and then harvest it, plant a little bit more. And so you're planting little bits throughout the whole season and harvesting more. So if you have a garden bed where you're wanting to grow squash and pumpkins and all of these things, those obviously take a lot longer to grow. They take basically all summer long. So in the meantime, while those plants are growing, pop in a bunch of radishes in that garden bed if you like radishes. I'm just using radishes as an example here, but those radishes will be ready within 60 days and you're gonna pull them out of the garden bed before the squash or pumpkins or whatever actually need all of that space to grow. Because if you think about planting a pumpkin, it's gonna need a huge space to grow, or like zucchini also needs a huge space to grow, but it doesn't need all that space up front. So you can plant these vegetables like radishes or things that grow really, really fast in the meantime. That way you can harvest within 60 days and then make more space for the zucchinis to continue getting bigger. That way you're just harvesting all season long and you're not just waiting until the very end of summer to harvest literally everything. So look into succession planting for sure. As far as watering your plants goes, I would recommend watering everything in the early mid-morning before the sun hits it, and try not to get the leaves of things. Try to really water things right at the base. You don't have to worry about evaporation and things like that. So it's just best to water not midday, because in the middle of the day when the sun is beating out and it's hot, that water is going to evaporate super fast. The leaves may get burnt to a crisp if you get water on it, and then they sit out under the sun. So try to water your plants first thing in the morning or last thing you do in the evening. Look into companion planting. So there's certain plants that grow better with other plants, and it helps, you know, not just with growth, but with pest control and things of that nature, pollination and stuff like that. So look into companion planting and look at the things that you really want to grow and see if there's other things that you should grow next to it. For example, I've had multiple people tell me this at this point, but I have not done it yet, but plant basil next to your tomatoes, because it not only changes the flavor of your tomatoes, but it also helps to kind of protect the tomato plants from pests and other things, or even like pairing blueberries with marigolds. I will always plant marigolds around my blueberry bushes because it helps protect them. So definitely look into companion planting. And lastly, if you're brand new to gardening, I would really start with super, super easy plants that are really hardy and almost impossible to kill, because there's nothing more frustrating than going through all this time and effort on your first go around and trying to grow something that's a little bit more finicky and just not getting anything to produce. That's so frustrating. So look into things like lettuce, zucchini, radishes, cherry tomatoes, rosemary, thyme, garlic, onions. All of those things are very, very easy to grow. In contrast, if I think of basil and cilantro, for example, those are so finicky and so annoying. And I know a lot of people that try to grow basil or cilantro and it just dies. So don't be too hard on yourself with those herbs. Try to get plants that are very, very easy to grow. Do you have any tips on how to stop disassociating when meditating? I focus too much to the point where I feel like my body isn't mine no more. It's what's making me struggle to be consistent with meditating. I love your channel so much. Thank you. Thank you for the valuable content you provide, and congrats on the 70K. Thank you. That's so sweet. So I think grounding practices are going to be really, really important here before and after your meditation, but even adjusting the types of meditations that you do is going to be really helpful. So for example, maybe don't go on visualization journeys. I'm not sure exactly what you're doing. Maybe you're counting your breaths or something like that, but a body scan meditation might be really, really helpful for you, because it actually helps you get more in tune with your body rather than disassociating from your body. So rather than counting your breaths and floating away and going on some visualization journey, you are focusing on your head, your shoulders, your fingers, and then you're working your way down to your hips, your legs, your feet. It's really tuning into your physical body and kind of forcing you to reconnect with all the different points. So I would recommend switching just for a little while, switching your meditations to body scan meditations or something similar rather than the style of meditation that you're currently doing, because again, I'm not sure what kind of meditation you're doing currently, but it sounds like you're floating away a little bit too much. So in addition to switching up the type of meditation, grounding practices before and afterwards are definitely going to be ideal. You can also hold something really textured during your meditation. So I have at my desk, I have this big hunk of jasper, because jasper is just so great for grounding. It instantly sinks you down into your body and makes you feel rooted. So, and I like rough pieces specifically because it's very textured and it's not pokey necessarily, but when I'm holding this, it keeps me so much more grounded than say a smoothed out jasper with no, rough edges. So get something like this, pick a crystal that's associated with grounding energy, preferably a rough crystal, and hold it during your meditations to help kind of keep you down here instead of floating up there. But then after your meditations, go outside, stick your feet in the dirt, or eat a piece of chocolate. That's a common thing. People will eat a little piece of chocolate as a kind of perk me up and get you back into your body, or just eat a full-blown meal, drink some electrolytes, do some things for your physical body. Maybe go on a workout afterwards. Actually working out your body can definitely get you back in tune. It sounds like there might need to be more physical activities going on the days that you meditate. So the more physical activities that you can incorporate to force yourself to get into your body and get in touch with yourself, the better. Have you ever come across amazing witchcraft/spiritual info from a non-witchcraft source? For example, accidentally stumbling across it in a fiction book or film, or even a mundane conversation with a stranger. Hope that makes sense. It does make sense. That is like one of the biggest reasons why I started my Literature for Occultists series, because you can find magical inspiration from anything. And this isn't just from a chaos magic perspective. Anyone can find magical inspiration from a book, from video games, from conversations that you're having with people. So that's why I wanted to create that series, because I wanted to show how to work with fiction in a magical and spiritual sense and how it can actually inspire our practices. So you're totally not alone in this. Yes, absolutely is my short answer. And I actually need to start getting through these questions faster or I'm never gonna finish. So lately I started noticing better results when working with water in my spells. Do you have any tips on how to incorporate it into practice? Where to find spells that include water? I find that most shared spells are mostly candle spells. Thank you for your help. It actually is very interesting that most of the spells you're finding for water are candle spells, because for me, candle spells are very much, you know, fire element related. For water, if I think about the spirit of water, it is very much about dreams, illusions, the unconscious realm. And so I don't actually use water for a ton of spell work where I'm trying to manifest something. And let me explain a little bit, because fire is very passionate, aggressive, and fast acting. It can help you get something that you want very quickly. Earth is a lot more stable and grounding, and it's not as quick, but it can provide you a really good, strong foundation to acquiring the thing that it is that you want. Air has a huge emphasis on the mind and intellect and travel and communication. So all of those three things, fire, earth, and air, I am more likely to use in spell work when I'm trying to manifest something or bring something to me. But water specifically, I think it is so much more valuable to use the water element in divination, specifically divination and dream work. And of course you can use water for spells, absolutely, but for me personally in my own practice, I would use it more for water scrying or purification ceremonies, like a ritual bath and a ritual shower to purify oneself, or in dream work, dream incubation and things of that nature, where you're connecting to the subconscious realm or the art of creating illusions or tapping into that aspect. I do love that you said that you have been noticing better results when working with water in your spells, though. I would be so curious to see how that's manifested for you, because for me, I don't really use water too much as far as manifestation goes, but it's all a personal practice, right? What works for you may not work for someone else, and so on and so forth. I am currently on the hunt for good elemental books. That's actually something that I'm actively working on. And at this time, I don't have any elemental books that I would like to recommend. I've read some and they're okay. They're okay, but I wouldn't like sit here and recommend it necessarily as like a wow 5-star book. So I wish I had a book to recommend to you, but I just don't yet, unfortunately. This is something you've talked about on your channel when it comes to witchcraft and other occult practices. A big draw for many is that DIY aspect of spirituality. We can home brew our own reality and ideas around magic. What are some aspects of your spiritual practice that are universal? What beliefs do you hold that you notice many others do as well? What is the through line? Why is that word messing me up today? Oh man, that resonates with so many 70K people. P.S. So many YouTubers seem to love your channel as well. I even saw Grumpy Old Crone recently mention you in one of her videos. Congrats on this well-earned growth. Thank you. I love Grumpy Old Crone. I love watching her videos. She's so hilarious. If you're not subscribed to her, go do that right now. Stop this video, go watch some of her videos, because her rants are hilarious. I adore her. So to answer your question, what are some aspects of your spiritual practice that are universal? None. No, oh gosh. This is so hard for me to answer, because from the chaos magic perspective, there's this goal to practice this avoidance of dogmatism. So anytime I find myself becoming a little bit too dogmatic and rigid with my thinking of what I believe to be true, it is time to decondition my mind and look at it from a different perspective. It's a very deeply spiritual practice for me to go through these processes of deconditioning. I don't know if I can answer that question. I don't know, because there are things that are tried and true in my practice. I will say that. There's a difference between, how do I explain this? There's a difference between doing something over and over again in my practice because it gets me results and it works, versus starting to think really dogmatically about that thing and then assuming that that's the only way to do it or that's the best way to do it. There's a total difference here, because I think some people just assume that if I'm trying to avoid dogmatism, then I must be doing different things all the time and I can never just stick with one thing that actually works. But there's a huge difference between finding a technique that actually works, because chaos magic is very results based. It's very much about how to get the thing that you want as fast and quickly and efficiently as possible. But the moment you start believing that that thing, again, is the only way to do things, or you're starting to get really rigid about the way that you're doing it, the rigidity in your mind from a chaos magic perspective stifles creativity, among many other things. And that is something that I do try to avoid. So if anything, the chaos magic core tenets, if chaos magic even has core tenets, which it really kind of doesn't, would probably be the only thing that is really consistent. How about this? I'm consistently inconsistent. That's probably the best way to explain it. Consistently inconsistent. And I know I'm gonna get so many people asking, why do you do that to yourself? That sounds exhausting. And I would just recommend just go watch my What is Chaos Magic video. If you are brand new to my channel, you're not familiar with chaos magic, it's such a deep spiritual process. And by the way, this was posted by Willow the Wandering Witch. I loved your question so much. I'm talking to everybody else at this point that may not understand what the heck it is that I'm talking about. For anyone else watching this that is very confused with what the hell I'm talking about, go watch that chaos magic video. It'll explain it so much better than what I'm doing right now. Have you ever researched or looked into hypnosis? And I was curious if you would consider it in the psychic field of practice, or maybe something similar to it. Side question, would you ever consider trying to be hypnotized? Do you think it would even work for you? Personally, I think it might work for you since you're familiar with shifting your beliefs and such, but do you have any thoughts? I have a lot of thoughts about hypnosis. I think it's so freaking cool. It's so cool. Psychology to me is sort of a science, but also an art. The more I study psychology, the more it really does become an art form rather than a science. I think initially when I first got into psychology, and especially if you take, general psychology 101 or whatever, you're introduced to all of this brain science, and it is very much a science. I don't want to say that it's not, but I think we assume it's so much more science-y than sometimes it actually is. And it really is this art form at times, and it touches on the boundaries of metaphysical, spiritual themes. So I think hypnosis, and I can't even really speak, you know what, I probably shouldn't speak about hypnosis because I'm not someone who's certified to do that, so I don't know all the ins and outs of the entire process, but I do think there is something so cool and magical and mystical with hypnosis, but it also can be explained by science, right? So it borders that line between science and art. I don't know if somebody who actually does hypnosis would appreciate me calling it that though. So I know for myself though, there is no way that someone could hypnotize me. No way. No, I'm a control freak. The only one that can allow me to lose control is me. There is absolutely no way that someone would, I don't think I could let go of control enough to allow someone else to hypnotize me. The reason why I practice meditation so much is to be able to let go of my control a little bit. And I've gotten there when I am able to do it on my own. But if I were to have someone else introduced into that mix, I don't think it would work out. There's no way. As far as what I consider it in the psychic field of practice, I don't know. That's such a gray area because I don't know if I would actually, now that I'm thinking about it, because the psychic field of practice, the psychic aspect for me really involves downloading things from external sources. And I know the word psychic can mean so many different things, and then we can go down that whole rabbit hole, but psychic hits, you're either downloading someone else's thoughts. You're downloading something from the cosmos above, from a god or goddess, downloading from other spirits or the universe. With the psychic field, there is an element of it not necessarily deriving from you, and you're just, yeah, I mean, I guess the best way I can explain it is downloading it from an external source. And with hypnosis, I don't think that fits quite right, because you have someone manipulating the mind of someone else. Manipulating the mind of someone else. Maybe that would fall under the psychic field. No, I don't know. I don't think I would put it there. And I can't fully articulate why I wouldn't put it there at this point in time. Maybe if I drank another energy drink, I don't know, I would have that level of intellectual capacity. But as I'm filming this, it borders too far on the line of brain science for me to consider it part of the psychic field. Well, what a fun debate. I really liked this question. Advice for locking in to one's own practice. I feel like I have yet to lock in. It feels like I'm always at the brink of a big breakthrough in my practice, but I never cross it. I actually felt exactly like this, and here's what I did. I did a key ritual, so I would recommend getting a key, maybe an old, really cool skeleton key or something. By the way, there's so many different suggestions that I could give, you know, soft skills, hard skills, whatever. I just want to give you this ritual because it was really cool and it actually worked for me. So get a key, and again, it can be an old, cool skeleton key, a key that you find at a thrift store, maybe you just buy it online because you want a really cool looking key, whatever. It needs to be a key that doesn't unlock anything in your life. So it can't be your front door key. It cannot be a key that you already use in some other aspect of your life. It needs to be a key that you can specially consecrate for unlocking different parts of your mind or unlocking your untapped potential or things of that nature. And when you consecrate this item, you are only going to be using it for that, and that's it. So you take your key and you can set up a consecration ritual. And by the way, you can just look up consecration ceremonies online. There's like a million different ways to consecrate something. All it involves is the sacred act of assigning this symbol or this item or this token to a specific task. So it doesn't have to be complicated, but I like a little pizzazz, you know? So I would recommend going all out with this ceremony, but sitting down, you know, let's say with the 4 elements. Actually, I did a garden vlog. I think I would recommend going to check out, if you're not familiar with consecration ceremonies, I showed a full consecration ceremony of a garden talisman in that video and all the elements that I used for it. Obviously, instead of a garden talisman, you would be using a key in this instance, and your intention would be different, but the process of consecrating that key would be very, very similar. And again, you can also look up other consecration ceremonies online, but consecrate your key for unlocking your true potential, your magic, unlocking different aspects of your psyche, and then sleep with it for the next 7 nights and record your dreams. I'm telling you, sleep with it 7 nights, record your dreams. You might be surprised with the results. So please, please, please give that a try. And then if you do give that a try, comment below, let me know, give me an update. I'm so curious. I would love to hear how it works out for you. Congrats on the 70K. Thank you. And do you have any favorite tarot decks lately, and how do you incorporate them in your practice? For instance, do you incorporate them into spell work and such? Hey, yeah, let me show you. So for divination, I always just use my Rider-Waite-Smith deck. It's an OG, what can I say? I love the OG tarot, but I really like this Egyptian deck. It's so pretty, and I use it sometimes when conversing with Thoth. I use my own divination system that I created with rocks, which y'all have seen on this channel 1,000 times, but I really do like this Egyptian tarot deck for connecting with him sometimes. It's really, really pretty. The 40 Servants deck for all the chaos magicians out there. I love this. It's just like a book of pre-made servitors, basically. And I use them in spell work all the time. I did a video a while ago giving a tour of all the intention bowls in my home, and I talked about how I use these cards in the intention bowls. So like you have the seer archetype here, the levitator, the gatekeeper archetype. There's so many different archetypes that you can work with. So I really, really love this deck. And then there's also these spell casting oracle cards are really cool because it's just an oracle card set. By the way, the backs are really, really pretty, but it's just a deck that has a bunch of cards with various intentions. So I'll show you some of them. Let's see. Oh, that's upside down, but that's commitment. Truth. Why are these all upside down? Hold on. Oh, here we go. Here's one for animals. And I'll just use these to, let's see, what's this one? Oh, freedom. I'll just use these in my ritual space. So if I'm setting up a temporary altar, I'll pick one of these cards that correlates to my intention, and then I'll set it up just to kind of have it as a focal point in my meditations or for the spell work itself. This one is life purpose. And these are just so cool. They're just little intention cards, well-being. So yeah, this was the spellcasting oracle cards. And that's pretty much it. I've really narrowed it down. After I sold all my stuff last month, I mean, I had so many decks. So, oh my gosh, like double digits. And I just never used them. And I was like, you know what? It's just time to pare down. I don't need that many decks. And I still have the Crow Tarot that I haven't even opened that I still want to connect to and just haven't done so yet. But I love the idea of dedicating different decks to different things. So not just spell work, but dedicating a tarot deck or an oracle deck specifically to one spirit that you're working with. And then you only use it when working with that spirit or when you're in a certain mental space. I don't know. I just think it's cool to dedicate different decks for different things. Do you plan to interview more practitioners from different cultural backgrounds, different countries, for example, Slavic, maybe East Asian? I look forward to this type of content as I do for any content you put out. Oh, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I would love to get a lot more diversity on this channel. Problem is, I don't know anybody. I just don't know. And it's funny too, because all the interviews that I've ever done on my channel have developed organically. I'm not the type of person that's just gonna cold call or cold email people just for the sake of it. I just kind of let interviews happen because it's weird to have someone sit down on a Zoom call with you that you've never met before. There's no rapport, there's no previous relationship there. It results in a much more difficult conversation. Things flow so much easier when I already have some sort of relationship developed with that person, and then we just naturally decide to do a collaboration together. So every interview I've done on this channel, actually that's not true. There have been a couple interviews that I've done on this channel where I didn't know that person very well prior to doing the interview, and it did result in a much more difficult conversation. And I'm not saying that conversation didn't turn out by any means, but it didn't flow as easily as interviewing a friend that you've had multiple conversations with. So I really do try to let the interviews on this channel develop organically, and I'm not going to be somebody that's cold calling people or cold emailing people. If someone reaches out to me, cool, awesome. But yeah, the problem is that I just don't know anyone that's Slavic that wants to come on my channel to share their story, or I don't know anybody that is East Asian that wants to come on my channel and talk about their story. I am totally open to that. And if it happens, awesome, would love that. I'm also currently taking a break from interviews as well because I did a lot in 2024. I did so many interviews and collaborations, and oh my gosh, it was really fun, but also very exhausting. And so this, for 2025, I just kind of want to take a break. But to answer your question, hell yeah, I would love to do that. I'm open to pretty much anything, so we'll just kind of see how the year develops. Hi, a recent subscriber here. Hello. I love your content because it's super digestible and easy to follow for my ADHD brain. Love it. Thank you. I had followed through the social media cleanse as a sacrifice to my deities, just like you suggested. Yay! And my life is so much better since. I have multiple questions to ask. Okay, before I get into the questions, I'm so excited for you. I'm so glad you did the sacrifice and did it like full social media cleanse. I love that for you. What occult concept would you not shut up about if I met you at a party? Which healing techniques or traditions, in your opinion, are open for all folks to practice? What criteria should someone meet to be fully ready to practice intermediate magic? And finally, your top must-haves when it comes to books in general, fiction, non-fic, occult resources. Oh my God. Whoa, there's so much here. All right, let's unpack. First question. What occult concept would you not shut up about if I met you at a party? Time being an illusion. Time being totally an illusion. And the CIA, don't even get me started. The CIA documents that were released to the public about the Gateway project that they were doing and getting into meditation and into these trance states. They were able to transcend the bounds of time and space. Meditation and trance states can literally transcend the bounds of time and space. Are you kidding me? Read some of those CIA declassified documents. I will not ever shut up about that because it's wild. It's so wild. What do you mean time traveling is possible? In our brains? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not saying anything's for certain, but it's pretty dang cool. Which healing techniques or traditions, in your opinion, are open for all folks to practice? I don't have any opinions on this because I don't think it's my place. I do not want to speak for others. I've been told by people who are part of these minority groups that they don't appreciate others speaking on their behalf. I am also not an anthropologist or any other sort of specialist or academic that should be speaking on these matters. I know that Dr. Angela Puka did and I brought this up before on this channel, but she did a cultural appropriation roundtable where she had a handful of academics on that panel to speak. So I definitely recommend going to check out Dr. Angela Puka. Her channel is called Angela's Symposium. She has a cultural appropriation panel, but for me personally, I don't think it's my place to say what someone else can or can't do in their personal practice. It's such a complicated, nuanced conversation. And at this point, I've had so many conversations with practitioners all over the world, not just in my personal life, but because of YouTube, I've been able to connect with people everywhere. Even people in the shamanic community, which the shamanic community is always under fire over what is appropriate versus what is not appropriate. And then hearing mixed messages from people that are actually part of those indigenous groups where some people say, yes, it's okay. And then other people say, no, it's not okay. So because I'm not part of those indigenous groups, it is not my place to say what someone else can or can't do. What criteria should someone meet to be fully ready to practice intermediate magic? And finally, so let's answer that really quick. It's going to be different for every person. Here we go again with my annoying, nuanced answers. I'm sure listening to this Q&A where I'm basically just saying it's different for every person. No, but it really is. There is no set curriculum that's going to take you from beginner to intermediate to advanced and so on and so forth. But I did do a video a while ago titled How to Become an Advanced Occultist, because I think that video answers this question. When somebody is in that intermediate phase and maybe wanting to advance beyond that. I know your question is more from beginner to intermediate, not necessarily intermediate to advanced, but that video does discuss what beginners learn as they move into a more intermediate space. So I would recommend watching that video. Your top must-haves when it comes to books in general, fiction, non-fic, occult resources, and so on. So for books, I did a whole occult bookshelf tour. I'm so sorry for saying this yet again. But no, truly, I just went through a process of completely gutting this entire room. And I put up a video giving a full tour of this ritual room, but then secondarily, right afterwards, I put out a bookshelf tour where I went over all of my favorites, all of the books that I did decide to keep in this space and why I chose to keep them. So for ceremonial magic and just general occult knowledge and occult history, from witchcraft to paganism to Celtic practices and such. So if you want book recommendations, definitely go check out the occult bookshelf tour that I did, because I talked about tons of books, why I chose to keep them in this space after having them for years, and which books were most impactful for me. So that kind of answers the book question. As far as occult resources go, maybe at some point I should do an updated list of all my favorite YouTubers. The problem is that I follow about 450 YouTubers. That's an insane amount. If I did a YouTube video showing all the YouTubers that I would recommend for every little niche of everything, oh my God, that would be just way too long. And podcasts, I mean, I'm in the double digits for podcasts that I listen to as well. There's so many really, really great podcasts and other YouTubers out there, but if I'm talking about must-haves, it's never going to be YouTube, podcasts, social media, Reddit. It's always going to be books. So I think going back to your original question, my must-haves are all in that occult bookshelf tour that I did. And thank you for your questions. We are back to the present day and we are going to rapid fire. Because I think I have like at least 20 more questions. So I'm just going to try to get through these as fast as possible, because if I don't, this video is never going to see the light of day. So here we go. I am wondering, I'm looking to make a cleansing spray for spiritually cleansing my home. My apartment has the fire alarm system from hell. Oh no, and it makes burning sage impossible. I wanted to add lemon and orange peel to my spray, but I'm wondering if I need to dry them first to keep them from molding. Yes. Or if I can just add the fresh peel straight to the water and it will be fine. You can add the fresh peel straight to the water and it'll be fine for a little bit, but eventually it will mold. So I would definitely recommend drying any sort of herbs or plant matter before you put them in tinctures, sprays, what have you. I mean, it'll be fine for the first little bit, but it will eventually get moldy. Also, after watching your brainwave video, awesome video by the way, thank you. One of my main takeaways is that meditating right before ritual gets you into an alpha state that's ideal for ritual and manifestation. Would I be right about this, or should I go back and rewatch the video? Yes, so we definitely want to be in an alpha brainwave state, and really what we're doing is we're kind of shutting off the conscious mind just a little bit and dipping down into our subconscious mind, and it takes down this. The conscious mind is so aggressive with the filtering system that it has. If something doesn't match or pass a reality threshold, your brain essentially filters it out. So you're going to be filtering out so many spiritual cues, just experiences with spirits in general. It's also the rational mind, so it's very critical. It's harder to tap into your psychic abilities and speak with spirits and all of those things when your conscious mind is super active. So dipping down into the alpha brainwave state, which is a little bit more relaxed, a little slower, will allow you to bypass that rational critical brain and be able to do your spiritual work better. So yes, definitely meditate and get yourself however you need to meditate. Doesn't have to be traditional meditation by any means. I think I talked about a bunch of different ways to meditate in my meditation video. But yeah, you are correct in that it definitely is ideal for ritual, getting into alpha. And then theta would be really great for like spiritual journeying, spirit flight into the astral realm, meeting gods and goddesses and conversing, getting messages from spirits and things of that nature. Theta is really great when you don't have to move your body. But for rituals specifically, when you still need to be up and moving around the space, you definitely want to be in an alpha brainwave state. And thank you, Ivy, so much for sharing your wisdom with us. It is deeply appreciated. Thank you. That's really sweet. Okay, how am I doing? That was fast. That was fast. Okay, next question. I know you were considering a video on the topic, but any tips and tricks, warnings, instructions that you follow when using spirit boards? So I've been asked by a couple people to make videos or make a video about working with the spirit board, because it's one of my favorite ways of communication in a seance. And I have put that on a poll for my channel members to vote on. So it is totally up to them, because I have a bunch of other topics in the mix and they obviously get to choose. And by the way, the person that asked this question is a channel member, so they already know this. But for everybody else, the channel members get to choose the content that I post. So I put it on a content poll and we will see if they choose that topic. But just very quickly, obviously, before you conjure a spirit, before you attempt spirit communication, you want to know the basics, right? Like, you want to know how to banish a spirit. So if you get yourself into a sticky situation, you need to know how to get yourself out of that situation. And all of those safety protocols that apply to working with spirits obviously apply when you're using the spirit board itself. But the spirit board is really just a different communication device. There's so much fear mongering around it when it's the exact same as using tarot to talk to a spirit, or the pendulum, or dowsing rods. All of these are just mediums for you to communicate with the spirit. So the rules aren't necessarily different for a spirit board per se. It's more so about just the rules in general when you're working with spirits, what's safe versus not safe. I will say for seances though, I have a whole outline that I do for seances, and the person that asked this question, since you're a channel member in the Discord server, I already posted my whole seance outline if you want to go check that out. But the outline discusses a part where you might want some sort of guardian spirit present, and you want to be very direct about who it is that you want to talk to. You can be open and just do a free-for-all and see who shows up, but you also should know how to get rid of those spirits just in case something goes awry. If you're really wanting to fuck around and find out, you will find out. So you just want to be safe with that. But having a guardian spirit really helps, such as calling in Archangel Michael, for example. He's a really popular entity to call in situations like this, just to kind of gatekeep and to have someone there with just a little bit more authority. And it doesn't have to be an angelic being, it can be a god that you work with, something that has spiritual authority over the other spirits that you're attempting to conjure. So I used to be really strict with how I use the spirit board, but the more I use it, the less strict I get, because it really is just like using tarot or dowsing rods or any of these other mediums, as long as you're following the protocol. This is so fast. If I made a video on spirit boards, I obviously have a lot more to say, but that is my quick advice, is that all the safety precautions that go into just working with spirits in general, those are the ones that you're going to want to apply to the spirit board. The spirit board itself doesn't necessarily... You can apply more if you want, but in my opinion, sometimes it's a little overkill, and I really do think people's fear is what's causing an uncomfortable situation to arise, not because of the spirit board. It is fear-based experiences. Just my opinion, okay? Don't get mad at me. I'm moving in a few days out of a house and relationship that I'm sad to leave, but ultimately this will be for the best, and into my parents' house again, where toxicity and their own mental health drove me out in the first place. Any tips on magically moving and personal protection in forced living spaces? Oh, that's so hard. I'm so sorry that you have to deal with that. There's so many things that I could say here. I think that closure is going to be one of the most important things first, not even just moving into this new toxic space. And you asked this over a month ago, so this advice is probably going to be totally irrelevant by now, but having some sort of ceremony where you say goodbye to the old place and don't allow your energy and your thoughts to linger there, I think is going to be really important. As far as moving into your parents' house where there's toxicity present, there is mental health issues present, I would recommend some sort of door wash or sigil, or I mean, if you work with spirits, you can always call in a spirit for this, but just something to where you can prime your bedroom door so that it's a safe sanctuary for yourself. For example, if you have a door wash that you have blessed with certain herbs and prayers and such, you would literally just wash the door and state your intention of when you enter this sanctuary, your bedroom, none of that energy follows you. None of their toxicity, none of their mental health issues, all of that stuff is filtered out at the door. So when you step into your bedroom, it is a safe haven for you. And again, you can use sigils for this. You can create a sigil and perhaps place it above your door. You can call in a spirit guide, some sort of spiritual entity to kind of watch over the place for you. You can create a servitor and then house it in like a little guardian gargoyle or something next to your door, but just something to where you're applying a filter to your bedroom door so that when you step in, you're able to separate yourself a little bit from the rest of the household. Unfortunately, I mean, there's not much that you can do as far as completely banishing and exorcising the mental illness out of other people that perhaps don't want to change, don't care to change, don't even recognize their own toxicity, but you do have control over your own space. If you really wanted to go the domination route though, and you did want to do some workings on your family members, you could of course create poppets of those family members and then sweeten them up a little bit by using some sweet correspondences and doing a ritual around those poppets to maybe make the environment a little bit nicer. But domination work always gets so messy, especially when you're in the same living space as other people. So I wouldn't really recommend going that route. I wouldn't try to dominate and force your will upon their will, because you're living in such close quarters. If something were to backfire, it would be really bad for you. So yeah, I would focus on the door to your bedroom, making it a filter somehow. And then of course you can add additional protections in your room and such as you see fit. I'm just really sorry you're going through that situation. That is so hard. Use some agrimony. Oh my God, pick up some agrimony and use it in all your workings, because it will send that negative crap right back to them. So if they try to send you some negative energy, you don't want to take that on. Agrimony will help you get that back. So maybe add agrimony into whatever charms you end up doing, or that door wash or whatever. What spiritual practices do you consider while traveling for fun? The only thing that I do while I'm traveling is I have a Mercury talisman, because Mercury not only rules over the mind and intellect and the mental space, but Mercury also rules over travel, good travel and communication. And those are the things that I really want to work with when I'm traveling, to make sure there aren't any delays, that, you know, travel goes smoothly, that communication is good, especially when going to another country where their first language isn't your first language. So I usually have a Mercury talisman on me. I find that it helps with good communication. It helps with faster travel times and such. But other than that, I don't really do a ton of traveling magic, because when I'm traveling, I'm so immersed and busy in what I'm doing. I always have these plans of like doing all these cool rituals when I get to the place, and then I never actually have time to do them because I'm so immersed in like what I'm seeing while I'm there. Is it a waste of time to do spells or working to help with government benefits? I have been doing praying and little spells for things I need, and I'm not getting anything. I'm financially unstable with no job and have intellectual disability and autism and pregnant. My Section 8 housing number keeps going up and I'm getting denied for SSI. I'm doing work to help bring these things to me, and I'm feeling this type of stuff is just wasting my time and energy, and I'm feeling betrayed by the universe. Is this type of work a waste of time? I hope you can answer my question in your video. Thank you. This is a really complicated question because it's so hard for me to answer this without actually seeing what it is that you're doing. And it really, I mean, there's so many different ways that I want to answer this question. Ultimately, if we're just talking about the magic portion of it, why is my magic not working, and is this a waste of time? I think that everybody has a different way of performing magic, and you might not have found the type of magical work that really resonates with you, especially if you're neurodivergent. I am on the spectrum as well. I can totally resonate with that. Your mind is not going to work the same as other people's minds, period. So what works for some people may not work for other people. And it sounds like you might not have found the thing that's actually working for you yet. The second thing I want to say is that you have so much going on. You have so much going on that I don't even know how you have the energy to put into these types of workings. I would suggest, I don't know if you work with other spirits, if you have any gods that you worship, if you have any ancestors that you can reach out to. I think in a situation like this, when there's so many things going on and you're potentially stressed out, you're potentially low energy, asking yourself to then put in the energy into these spells to benefit your situation when you're already totally depleted, that's really hard on your body. So I would recommend maybe petitioning an ancestor. Ancestors are so great to work with, and I have always found that they are willing to help. I mean, with the caveat, not everyone has a great relationship to their ancestors. I fully understand that. But if you do have a good relationship, or maybe just you don't even know them, as long as it's not a bad relationship, but maybe you don't even know them, reach out and see what happens. All you have to do is write down a prayer, maybe build up a little ancestor altar and start that connection with them and petition them. Look up how to petition your ancestors for something. There's lots of videos online that can walk you through something like that, and ask for their help. That way you're not wasting your time and your energy on these spells that aren't working because you potentially don't have enough of the energy needed in order for that spell to be successful. And I don't know if 100% this is your case. That's what I'm getting right now, because I'm putting myself in your shoes, and if I were in your shoes, I'd be exhausted. Okay, being pregnant alone is exhausting. So I think that calling for external help, calling your ancestors in or another spirit guide to help you might be more beneficial than you trying to go at this alone, because you don't have to go at this alone. You don't need to be pushing your energy into all these spells. Ask for guidance, ask your spirit guides to come in and help you. Alternatively, maybe magic just isn't the answer for you right now. Maybe it's not working, and that's okay, and a completely different approach is needed. Again, I think I would need more information, a little bit more context as to what you have done to be able to give a better answer to this. I think what's the book? It's called Financial Sorcery by Jason Miller. I think he has a lot of I haven't read this book in a long time, but I think it has a lot of really practical advice in there. If I'm not mistaken, because it's been so long, I think it's a lot of mundane and magical advice. So this might be a really good book to start with if you're not interested in connecting to your spirit guides, your ancestors, etc. Just to kind of rehaul everything, because it sounds like money is really at the root of a lot of these issues, right? And I hate to say that because people are like, oh, money doesn't buy happiness. Well, okay, you've never lived in a low income situation then. Like, coming from someone, I get it. Man, I was raised so poor. For anybody that hasn't been raised like that, you simply don't get it. Money can buy comfortability, and that is so important. And it sounds like money really is the root of a lot of these situations. So see if you can rent it from your library. I know a lot of people say they cannot afford to buy books, but rent it from your library. There's even subscription services, like if you already have Spotify, for example. I think Spotify already gives you the ability to listen to free audiobooks. So definitely explore some of those options. Maybe pick up that financial sorcery book. And I hope that reaching out to your spirit guides helps rather than you just totally going at this on your own. You're going through a lot right now. You're handling a lot right now. Let other people help you. How do you balance out the cognitive dissonance of utilizing something deterministic like astrology in something as free will based as magic? I've been working to brush up on my astrology knowledge, but the more I read, the more incompatible with magic it feels, despite the long history the two have together. Thanks for your time and excited to see how the channel grows in the new direction. Oh, thank you. That's really sweet. Yeah, join the club. No, this is exactly how I feel. This is exactly, listen, I love astrology. I really do. I studied it for a handful of years, and I got to a point where it was so heady. I can hear my astrologer friends right now. I can already hear my astrologer friends saying, don't say what you're about to say. No, I love astrology. I think it can be incredibly helpful, not just in understanding yourself when it comes to your own birth chart, but especially in electional astrology, when you're picking the times where the stars in the sky sort of align to whatever it is that you want to do for your ritual. I think there's so much power in that. I have definitely noticed a difference when I time my rituals by the stars and actually look at the placements via electional astrology. And I pick a time, if I want to work with Mars, and I pick a time where Mars is domicile and, you know, there's all these other factors to it. Or maybe I'm working with the moon phases and I want to do something specifically on a full moon versus a new moon and so on and so forth. It is very compatible with magic. There are times where I think astrology can be so immensely helpful in a magical practice. I've seen so much more success when I use planetary timing than when I don't. But it gets to a point. Sometimes when I deep dive down the astrology rabbit hole, it's like the more you study, the more you feel like you don't know anything at all about astrology, because it's a deep, endless pit. And it gets to be too heady, and I end up getting way too much in my critical rational mind. And at that point, I'm not doing magic anymore. And so, yeah, there's a lot of debates. Is astrology even magic, or is it more of a science? Is it an art, or is it a science? I don't know. This kind of goes into the conversation of, can science and magic even complement each other? Can one explain the other, or are they two complete separate things that should be separate? And I've gone back and forth on that too. So I think with astrology in particular, use it until it's helpful. Don't use it when it becomes unhelpful. This is such an annoying answer, I know, but I utilize the parts of astrology that do help my magical practice in terms of planetary timing and understanding my own birth chart. Anything that gets beyond that and gets a little bit more complicated, that is where I feel like it is doing me a disservice, because then I feel like I'm circling around and around and around, and I'm never actually getting clear-cut answers. It's taking me away from the free-flowing creativity of my magic. And this is just me personally. Again, I know my astrologer friends are going to hate my answer right now, but I think astrology is a powerful tool. But at some point, for me at least, there needs to be a cutoff. Because I spend too much time in my rational, critical mind the deeper I go. I understand that your witchcraft, among other things, assisted in curing your depression. I understand this is not the same thing, but what would you do to battle cancer? A candle, a poppet, a talisman? Oh boy, that's such a big question. First of all, I am so sorry that potentially you or a loved one is going through that. I did workings for my mom when she was battling cancer. She's had a couple different kinds of cancer, and it really I know a lot of people would say, don't do magic at all. Don't do magic at all, because if you do magic and something happens that you don't want to happen, you may potentially blame yourself, even if it's not your fault. So there's that aspect to consider. Maybe not doing something is actually better if you feel like you're someone that's going to blame yourself if something were to happen. I hate to say that, but I have to say it. I did choose to do a couple workings for my mom, and it really just depends on your goals. So for my mom in particular, she was in a lot of pain. And so what I ended up doing wasn't necessarily about trying to cure her cancer, which is, I mean, a massive feat for someone to take on. But I decided to make her a charm for her pain. And then I put it under her pillow and she slept with it, and it helped reduce her pain. So I think trying to figure out, are you treating symptoms? Are you trying to treat like, what are you trying to do exactly? If you're trying to reduce pain, then doing some sort of sleep pouch under the pillow may help, with herbs that help aid that, magically speaking. I think petitioning ancestors in this particular instance, which is what I have done in the past, was really helpful for me, because in most cases, unless you have bad relationships, again, with your ancestors want us to be healthy. They want us to succeed. They want us to do better. So petitioning ancestors to help on their end, because it's such a big feat for someone to take on. So if you can enlist the help of other spiritual entities, I think that might be better suited. So petitioning ancestors, and then, you know, doing things to like help pain management, or to help energy levels, or better communication with the doctors and things like that. There's definitely little charms that you can do, but I'm just really sorry that you're going through that. And I hope whomever it is heals very, very quickly. Do you think you'll ever have your cousin as a guest? I know she is a druid and I'm just learning about it. Would love to interview her if she's up for it. Thank you. I have been trying to get Lauren on this channel, okay? Lauren, so by the way, people always get hot in my comments about druidry. We all know it's a reconstructed practice, okay? Before anyone comments, being a druid is ridiculous in today's age because we don't know what the actual druids used to do. Lauren knows that. I know that. We all know that, okay? Nobody's saying that they're doing exactly what the ancient druids used to do, because the records are not there and we don't know what they used to do. So my cousin Lauren practices druidry, yes, and is a druid from a reconstructionist perspective. So I just have to throw that out there. Anyways, I've been trying to get Lauren on this channel, and they are just, they really want to. We've talked about it before, but I think they want to feel more like an authority figure before coming on the channel to talk about it. And I even assured Lauren, I was like, you know what? You don't have to be the perfect authority figure. We can just talk about your own experiences. It doesn't have to be something that's, let me teach you Druidry 101, that type of thing. But they're just living their hermit life. They're woodworking a lot and creating products, and they have a shop now where they sell their woodworking, like wood burning designs and stuff, and they're just kind of living their best life, and I think they enjoy the piece. So I'm still working on it. I'm trying. We'll see. I think Lauren will want to come on the channel at some point, but I have no idea when that's going to happen. I hear a lot of witches in media talk about how we should be connecting with the folklore and folk practices of the area we live in or our ancestors. However, what if we can't do either? I don't know where an entire half of my ancestry is from, and getting into what is able to be known would require me to talk to unsafe people in my family. I also don't feel like there is really any folklore in my state. Sure, there is plenty of indigenous stories and folklore to study, which I absolutely want to and will do, but I can't add many of those practices as I am not indigenous and don't feel comfortable doing that. What is your advice for those of us stuck in limbo of heritage and folklore study? My very first response to this is that there is nothing wrong with, you know, getting to know folklore and ancestors and all of those things, but also that's something that's very trendy right now, and for good reason. There's something really beautiful about those practices, but you don't have to do that. You definitely don't have to do that. I have a lot of folk witches in my life. I have a lot of witches that work with their ancestors in their life, but if that doesn't resonate with you, then why do it? You definitely don't have to. I feel very similarly in my state. There's not a ton of folklore here either, and there is some folklore from indigenous groups, but there's actually not a lot at all. So I feel you on that. And then as far as getting connected to your ancestors go, I guess my question is why? Do you want to do ancestor work, or are you just being told that that's something that you should do? Because there are so many other spirits out there that you can work with besides getting in touch with the folklore and your ancestors and such. Again, that's a beautiful practice. I know it's hot. I know a lot of people like to do that, but you certainly do not have to. I'm wondering too if there's an element. I think a lot of people feel like they need to tap into things like folklore and their ancestors because they want to feel rooted, especially because it sounds like you're feeling not very rooted because you don't feel comfortable working with the things on the land that you currently occupy. So I think a sense of connection and feeling rooted really does come from community and higher power. And so I would look at those two aspects and see what other things that you can tap into besides ancestors and land folklore. So in terms of community, is there a community that you can be part of? A group of witches, even if it's a Facebook group, a mini coven that you throw together with like 3 friends or something, or even an occult study group. I'm in a couple study groups actually, which provides such a sense of community because I have friends that I get together with and we study this book together or we study this magical practice together. But finding ways of connecting to community, and I don't just mean like following a TikToker or following even a YouTuber like myself or whatever, but actual community where you can have a back and forth conversation with people, you can meet on a regular basis. So community is number one. I think that will definitely help you feel a lot more rooted without having to go the folklore ancestor route. And then secondarily, in terms of your higher power, what does that look like? Do you believe in God? Do you believe in multiple gods? Is there a specific pantheon that's calling out to you? Are you agnostic or atheist? In which case, that's totally fine. I myself tend to be a little bit more of a pantheist. So I would look into those things, pantheist, polytheist, monotheist, animism. Look at all these worldviews of how someone might connect to some sort of higher power and see how you feel about it. Because once you're able to kind of figure that out for yourself, maybe you can build your practice around that, and that helps you feel a lot more connected and rooted to where you are and what it is you're doing with your magic. I might be totally off base here. I might be totally off base with everything that you just asked. But yeah, I do hear a lot of witches talking about connecting to ancestors and learning about folklore and land spirits and all of that. And it's beautiful. I've done that in my own practice, but it's certainly not something that everybody needs to do if you're not called to it. In regards to paradigm shifting, is there something in particular that you've wanted to try shifting into but haven't yet? Ooh, that's a good question. Wow. I don't know if there's anything that I haven't done yet. Maybe no, that's actually not true. There's always more to explore. I think it has to do with circling back around to things I've already visited. But for example, I'm just about to go, I'm looking at my study materials right over here, but I'm just about to go back into Golden Dawn magic and getting really serious about working through all the initiation levels and such with a couple friends. And so I think it's really about cycling back through some of the things I haven't visited in a long time. So for example, ceremonial magic has really been calling me, and I haven't revisited Golden Dawn stuff in 10 plus years. It has been so ridiculously long, and I want to go back to that, and I want to push myself a little bit. I want to make myself a little uncomfortable because when I've done this in the past, it's hard for me to read certain texts and not feel a little bit of resistance for whatever reason, maybe because I was an atheist in the past or whatever. But so the Golden Dawn is next on my list. In your experience, does saying incantations in another language help the spell or ritual? Maybe a spell from a specific culture would require that language. Maybe ancient languages like Latin, which I've seen being used in pop culture for witchcraft. Also, what do you think of using a language, specifically French, that I learned in high school, just because it feels more distinct from my native language, English, and thus I focus on the words and meanings more? Okay, that's all bye. Okay, hell yeah. I think that language, not even just language, but the sounds that our mouth makes, which is very different depending on what language you're speaking, like the tones, all of it. I think it can absolutely affect your magic. I know some people think it's a little Hollywood, when you're speaking Latin instead, but no, I think it can definitely induce a certain mind state, because think about the language Latin for a second. What does that conjure? When you think of Latin, there's going to be certain images, emotions that are conjured with the idea of this language. And all of that is going to be brought in your ritual space. So if you have a hard time taking yourself seriously and speaking in Latin helps you take yourself a little bit more magically seriously, then do that, because it's going to invite a certain feeling to it. And it's not just about how you feel, it's also potentially how the spirits work as well. I know there are some practices where, yes, the language is very, very important when working with specific spirits. I know not everyone subscribes to that, it really just depends on practice, but hell yeah, I absolutely think that language can make a really big difference, just depending on the person, the practice, the spirit you're working with, all of those things. So my quick answer would be yes. Have you ever thought of going to an estate sale and buying an item or trinket from there and using it as a vessel for a servitor? I feel like this would be such a cool thing to do. Like, imagine the energy attached to an item you got from an estate sale. Yeah, hell yeah, done it. Works great. That's my short answer. I think it's really cool. You know, sometimes you might find that vessel or that trinket that you get from an estate sale ends up having its own energy, which can influence the servitor as well. By the way, people comment sometimes about my pronunciation of servitor because people say it's supposed to be servitor. And if you look at the linguistic development of the word, you can say it either way. So if people are offended that I say servitor instead of servitor, I really don't care. So anyways, yeah, I think that's a great idea. And it's kind of a fun thing to go to a thrift store or an estate sale or something and see something like a little genie lamp or something. And you're like, oh, that would be great for a servitor. So do it. Do it. Fuck around and find out. Last question. If you could only keep 3 of your favorite occult books, which ones would you choose and why? Oh my goodness, Willow, that is such a difficult question. Okay, so I think 3 books, man, that changes all the time. That seriously changes all the time. I think I have to go with Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy. Obviously, we're reading that in book club right now, and it's so foundational, and so many other books reference this book. So if I'm keeping just 3 books, really I don't need the knowledge in these books because I've potentially read them already, right? Like all these books behind me, I don't need any of them because I already know the contents of what's in these books. But if I had to narrow it down to 3, I want to keep the ones that are the most inspiring for me. And I think Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy for sure. And I'm going to count that as one book because technically in the Donald Tyson translation, it is one giant book. So I know some people would say, oh, that's your 3 books right there. No, Donald Tyson has it in all one book, so we're counting that. Secondarily, as I just mentioned previously, I am going through the Golden Dawn all over again. So this would be my second one, big black book. And actually, just as a side note, I'm also working through the entire self-initiation into the Golden Dawn with a couple friends. A couple of us are gonna, whatever, work through all of these. And I'm very, very excited to revisit Golden Dawn magic and do proper ceremonial magic because it has been 10 plus years and I'm really looking forward to challenging my atheism agnostic ways and pushing myself to, again, subscribe to a view that is very, very different from the one I naturally gravitate towards. So I would say the Golden Dawn would be my second choice. Let's see. For my third book, it would probably be an astrology book. Because if I think about all my witchcraft books, I wouldn't really keep any of them. Not because I don't love them. I think they're great. But if I'm only keeping 3, it's probably the third one's probably going to be astrology because that is something that I would want to keep as a reference manual. So I'm looking at my astrology books right now. Hellenistic Astrology by Chris Brennan is probably the astrology book that I would end up keeping as a reference. I really like that book. It is a fat textbook. Either that or Astrology, the Divine Science. But the third book would definitely be astrology related. Woo! I did it. I answered all the questions. I did it. I finished. The second half of this video, there's going to be so many complaints in the comments. You talk too fast. For those that have been on my channel for a while, you already know. But for anybody new to the channel, I do naturally talk very fast and it really upsets a lot of people. Like I get comments all the time of people saying, you talk too fast. I can't even listen to this. For anybody that needs a reminder, there is a button in the YouTube settings where you can reduce the playback speed by 0.75 and it'll play at a much slower pace that is more digestible for a lot of people. But this is how I am, and I'm not changing myself. For a while on YouTube, I was like trying to change myself to please everyone else, but I don't really do that anymore. So I talk fast, it is what it is. And I know I was talking a little extra fast because I was trying to blow through all the questions, but thank you all again so much for being here. Thank you for submitting the questions. I'm so sorry that it took me 2 months to get this out. Oh my God. I have some really exciting videos coming up though. I've already got some scripts written. We are going to talk about some topics I've never talked on this channel. I have a huge surprise guest coming on soon later this month. And oh my God, I want to tell you who it is so bad, but I can't tell you yet. I just gotta wait a little bit longer, but it's huge. I'm so honored and so excited. So there's lots of stuff in the works, but love you all. Thank you for watching. Bye.